Hi folks, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates, and the title of my video today is Rocket Man is the best therapy movie ever. Seriously. So, as many of you know, I don't just make videos to make videos. I wait for inspiration to strike. And last week, my youngest daughter, Jordan, was in town at the beach and visiting and from Denver. And we went to the movies, Jordan, Renda, and I. And we saw Rocket Man, and I had no idea what was coming. I had no idea it even was a therapy movie. I thought it would be along the line of the movie about Queen, and just an interesting movie filled with good music. But it was, I would say, I'm a huge fan of Good Will Hunting, and also a movie from long ago, Ordinary People, where Mary Tyler Moore played a narcissistically abusive mother, and Judd Hurst played a really great therapist. Timothy, what's that guy's name? Hutton, played a young man in pain. That's a great therapy movie. Good Will Hunting. I think Rocket Man was even better than those two, and that's really saying something. Who knew that Elton John was in recovery? I didn't know. Who knew that Elton John was narcissistically abused? I did not know that. His father had PTSD from being in a war. He was cold. He wouldn't hug Elton. He was vicious. I guess Elton's real name is Reginald, Reggie. But the father was cold, vicious, and you could just feel so much yearning in young Elton for time and connection with his father. At one point he said he left without even giving me a hug. Elton John's mother was a real piece of work. At one point in his therapy, he was doing some work, and as he was indirectly working on his mother, he called her a cold-hearted monster, and that was understating the fact she was vicious and a user. And she said, "You will never be loved properly because you're gay." She was emasculating. She was a real piece of work. He only got praise and encouragement from his grandmother. Thank goodness for those few people in life sometimes who are able to give us a little bit in our childhood, how much difference that makes. So then he grows up, and he was a piano prodigy, and he first started to have a tiny little bit of success, and this manager comes along, his first real love of his life, and he was a stone cold narcissist who never did really care about Elton. He used him. He was charming. He love-bombed Elton, and he pried people away from the people who really cared about him. So the cool thing, at the end of this movie, you find out that Elton John has been sober for 28 years, and that he's been married for 25 years to a wonderful man, and that he's being loved properly. And they've even adopted 2 children and are raising children. To me, the high point of the movie, when I was crying the most, and I looked over and Renda was crying and somebody in front of us was crying, was during his time in a treatment center. And he was reenacting his work, and his inner child says, "When are you gonna hug me?" And then grown-up Elton hugged his inner child, and I just lost it. I lost it. Another thing that happened in his life is he married his anti-type. So his type was a combination of his mother and father, his just a monster. So his anti-type, he married a woman who was a really, really nice person, who wasn't sociopathic or narcissistic. She was just a really saintly person, and that was safe, but it didn't have a lot of energy to it. The creative energy in the movie, watching this creative genius, made me really weak. You can hear Mr. Pauly. He wants to go on a walk, and he's walking around. Hold on, buddy. Don't pee on the floor. Yeah, it was cool to see a chronicle of the joy of breaking through with your art. That was really cool. At the end, you could tell that he was really in recovery, because he started. When you're in an addiction, you're thinking about yourself. But at the end of the movie, he expressed connection and love and gratitude toward his co-writer, Bernie Taupin, I think is how you say his last name. That's another thing. I didn't know that Elton John didn't write his songs, that Bernie Taupin provided most of the lyrics. There are movies, La La Land was one of them, where people like break out in song, like right in the middle of a scene, and I've always hated those. And they do this all through this movie, but it really worked. I thought it was great. I thought it was really cool how they did that. So, but every other movie I've seen like that, I've just hated, because it seemed corny. In this movie, it didn't seem corny. Somewhere along the line, Bernie and Elton must have collaborated, because it seems like much of his music came from his pain. I related to not being loved properly. At one point, Elton John went through a shattering, and he spent a lot of time in a treatment center, and he had some food addiction, and of course he had relationship addiction, so I could relate to all of those. I've gained a great deal of respect for Elton Hercules John. He picked Hercules for middle name. Isn't that awesome? Elton Hercules John. I wish that we knew the truth about a lot of famous people. Because Elton John is one of us, and I didn't know that. Sometimes we eventually find out the truth about famous people like Bill Cosby. But I'm sure there's many stories about people who grew up being narcissistically abused and then replicated that in their adult relationships and then got in recovery and got better, and we just never heard about it. So I just remembered 1973. I was a freshman in high school, and my brother had a little 45 record. Do you young people know what a 45? It's just a little bitty record. It has one song on one side, one on the other, and one had Benny and the Jets on it. And the other side, I forget what it had, but it was one of his really famous songs, and I just remembered how much I like Benny and the Jets better. So, ironically, having 2 narcissistic parents in the long run can actually bring blessing to a life if you get in recovery and you learn how to be loved properly. And it gives you a lot of creative juice. I think especially if you're in some kind of creative work, it can really be a blessing. Elton John's story could have ended without his recovery. It could have ended with early death. It could have ended with him getting AIDS. It could have ruined his career. He certainly could have committed suicide. I think there was a suicide attempt. He could have ended up being half as great as being the legend that he has turned out to be. The ending, there was this really powerful ending where the song I'm Still Standing, he sang that at the end. It was really powerful. And what he was saying is, in spite of narcissistic parents, in spite of a narcissistic manager, in spite of addiction, in spite of not being loved properly, through recovery, I'm still standing. Very powerful, very joyful. The other thing I took from the movie is I need some new glasses. I recently got some new glasses. I used to have, like, you'd see me wearing 2 or 3 different pair, but my new ones, this is all I got. They're sort of boring. So I'm not going to get like really audacious Elton John glasses, but I need to get me some new glasses. But if you haven't seen Rocket Man, I highly recommend it. It was fabulous. It was just a commentary on recovery from addiction and recovery from narcissistic abuse. So thank you for watching today. I got to get Paulie out for he pees on the floor. Thank you for watching, and go to our website, familytreecounseling.com. I've got 7 books that I've written, ebooks that you can download for less than $5 each. Some of them are $3. So check that out, and also subscribe to our channel, Family Tree Brand Life Coaches. And every other Tuesday night we have a live stream. This coming Tuesday on the 9th, Jerry Wise is going to host. Thank you for watching, and God bless.